Good morning, dear students of class 12. Welcome to the English online learning class. Today we are going to take up part 2 of the lesson On the Face of It by Susan Hill. So first let us quickly recap what we did in the previous class. Well, we did a little bit of introduction of the author Susan Hill and the background of the play. Now this play is featuring an old man called Mr. Lamb and a small boy called Derry. Now, the meeting place is Mr. Lamb's garden. Now, Derry has entered Mr. Lamb's garden. He's on a lookout of a secluded place, and when he sees no one in this garden, he comes there because he wants to be away from everyone. But then Mr. Lamb enters his garden and Derry is startled. He begins the conversation by saying, "Take care of the apples." Derry says, "Who's there?" Then Mr. Lamb introduces himself by saying, "I am Lamb, Mr. Lamb." And he also tells the boy to be careful of the apples and also has a concern for him by saying that be careful, you could fall. Derry tries to explain him that he came here because he thought that there was no one. But Mr. Lamb says he's already here, the house is empty, so in a way there is no one here except for him and Derry. Now, Mr. Lamb further says that he's seen him, how he entered his garden by climbing onto the wall, whereas the gate is always open. He could have entered like this also. But Derry tries to clarify that he had not come for stealing. But Mr. Lamb says that he knows that he will not steal, although there are some young lads who come here and they spoil the apples. Now, Derry further tries to leave the place, but then he says that I just wanted to come into the garden and that is why I came. And Mr. Lamb says, "So you did." But then Derry says that you don't know who I am. Mr. Lamb says, "I already know that you are a boy of 13 or so." Derry clarifies by saying that he is 14 years old. Now, but then he says that he has to leave. Mr. Lamb says, "Nothing to be afraid of." He tries to comfort him. Then he says that it's a garden and then I am the only person in this garden. Derry says, "I'm not afraid of anyone. Rather, people are afraid of me." Mr. Lamb says, "Why should that be? Everyone is. It doesn't matter who they are or what they are or how they look, how they pretend. Means by seeing me, they make pretense. Actually, they are afraid." Mr. Lamb says, "See what? What they think. What do they think then?" Derry says, "You think. You also think the same way. Here is a boy, and then you look at my face. That's bad. You feel sorry. It's the most terrible thing. And then you further think that is the ugliest thing that I've ever seen. And then you also feel very sympathetic." But he says that he doesn't want any kind of sympathy. He says, "Actually, you are also afraid of me like others." And why would you not? Because even when I look in the mirror, I am afraid of myself. Mr. Lamb, now we are going to continue further. Mr. Lamb, no, not the whole of you, not of you. Yes, later on, when it's a bit cooler, I'll get the ladder and a stick and pull down those crab apples. They are ripe for it. I make jelly. It is good time of the year, September. Look at them. Orange and golden, that's the magic fruit, I often say, but it's best picked and made into jelly. You could give me a hand. So Derry wants to clarify something about his face. But Mr. Lamb tries to avoid it or doesn't notice it, but then he continues saying by telling him that I'm going to get a ladder and a stick and I'm going to take out those crab apples. They are ripe and it is best to make jellies. I do it. September time is the best time for this magic fruit, and it is best when it's picked at this time and made into jelly. He also asked Derry to help him in plucking the apples. Derry, what have you changed the subject for? Derry was trying to tell him something and he didn't like this. He gets angry. He says, you are also like others. You have changed the subject deliberately. People always do that. Why don't you ask me? Why do you do what they all do and pretend it isn't true and it is there? In case I see you looking at mine and get upset, I will tell you, you don't ask me because you are afraid. He says that you are no different like other people. When other people look at me, also they pretend and they change the subject of their thought. Otherwise, from inside, they are feeling upset and then they are afraid. So there is nothing different from you and other people's way of thinking. Mr. Lamb, you want me to say so then? He says, well, if you want me that I should ask you about your face, then you can say, now, Derek, I don't like being with people, any. He now opens up slightly. Now, just see the change in Derek. Earlier, he was not ready to sit there in the garden when Mr. Lamb has entered. He was not ready to talk, but Mr. Lamb kept asking him, and he had started replying, although he was not in a mood to talk. Now, finally, he is opening up slightly. He says that I don't like to be in people's company. I should say, to look at it, I should say you got burnt in a fire. He says, I can guess that you have a burnt face. Probably you got it burnt in a fire. Now, Terry, not in a fire. I got acid all down that side of my face and it burned it all away. It ate my face up. It ate me up. And now it's like this and it won't be ever be any different. So he has told him what has actually happened with his face. It's not fire. The acid had burnt my face and it completely ate me up. And now you see how it is like. And at the same time, he tries to tell him that it is not going to be any different. It will remain the same. I have to live with this face. So he has opened up with Mr. Lamb. He's tried to tell him what has actually gone wrong with his face. He's not born with it. An accident and mishap had spoiled his face, had made it look ugly. We'll stop here and we'll continue with the remaining portion in the next class. Thank you. Have a nice